Hi, little dear. That's the kind of shot that I want if GoPro ever does the GoPro Awards again. Hello everyone, hope you're having a great day. My name is Vince and thank you for joining me for another episode of Secrets of the Trails. Today we're around Oaks, Pennsylvania, ready to check out the Perkiomen Trail. The Perkiomen Trail is a very picturesque multi-use trail that winds through the beautiful landscape surrounding Perkiomen Creek in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. It measures out at a little over 20 miles point to point from the southern terminus here, about half a mile beyond the lower Perkiomen Valley Park, to the northern terminus that's around Green Lane Park. It's part of the Circuit Trails, a developing 800-mile urban/suburban network of trails in greater Philadelphia. According to the Circuit Trails website, the Perkiomen Trail was built on the former Reading Railroad Perkiomen Branch corridor that carried freight, agricultural goods, recreational traffic in the 19th and 20th centuries, as well as the famous Perkiomen ice from the several ice houses that used to exist along Perkiomen Creek. According to the Montgomery County's page for the trail, the Perkiomen Trail begins right here at this intersection of the Perkiomen Trail and the Schuylkill River Trail that continues in that direction and that direction into central Philadelphia and up the Schuylkill River. But the closest public parking for the Perkiomen Trail isn't right here at the beginning of this trail. It's a half a mile up that way at lower Perkiomen Valley Park. But here at the technical start of the trail, there seems to be a little bit of confusion, when isn't there, about the actual start of the trail. Trailing places the start of the trail firmly on the Schuylkill River Trail. About a third of the mile from the actual start of the trail here, across Perkiomen Creek on that bridge that's clearly marked on Google Maps as the Schuylkill River Trail. All Trails doesn't actually seem to have this starting point on any of their curations for the Perkiomen Trail, and there are a lot of them, which is probably just an oversight since they do have a curation for the trail labeled as Perkiomen to Lower Perkiomen Valley Park, which is the curation that I'm using today. Google Maps places the start of the trail right here where we're standing. So to make things easier, we're going with the map supplied by the county, what locals lovingly call Montco. So we're going to call this point mile 0 for the Perkiomen Trail. So we're starting out here at mile 0, as you can see. It's right there, guys. So fix your curations, please, all trails. The treadway is a mixture of pavement and crushed limestone and averages anywhere from 10 to 14 feet in width. We're going under Route 422 here. And you can see that these are quarter-mile markers, and we're coming into the lower Perkiomen Valley Park, but right up here, we gotta check something out. Okay, check this out. Just before we reach the lower Perkiomen Valley Park proper, you can look through the trees here. There's this small dam of sorts and a building on the opposite side of Perkiomen Creek. According to the Montgomery County's Parks, Trails, and Historic Sites Department, around where we can see that water treatment facility, James Morgan built a saw and grist mill around 1760 on that site, along with a mill house and other structures. John James Audubon, the famous naturalist in whose honor the Audubon Society is named, made his home on that site from 1803 to 1806. That whole site, including the parts that we can't see from here, is now known as the John James Audubon Center at Mill Grove. It's a great historical site here in Montgomery County, and I encourage you to stop and take a tour of the grounds if you haven't already done it. We'll see in a few minutes that there's an Audubon loop trail off of the Perkiomen Trail, so you can reach Mill Grove by bicycle if you want. Now, about a little over a half a mile from the technical southern terminus of the trail, here is the lower Perkiomen Valley Park. It is a large, sprawling park with multiple parking areas, way too many to mention, probably at least 150 or 200 parking spaces across multiple parking lots. There's one, there's two that I parked in, there's another one down here closer to the pavilion. There are just a lot of places to be able to park here, and a couple of places where you can access the trail from the parking areas. A lot of green space here in lower Perkiomen Valley Park. And we're coming up to mile 1. There's another one of these that have the trail markers on the side facing the trail, which is a little bit difficult to be able to read where you are unless you can actually just see the post and look to the side as you're passing it. A little bike repair station here. And there's another large, very large parking area. So at this point, you're going to actually make a decision. If you want to use the Audubon Loop Trail, you can go that way and just go right back around. But obviously we're on the Perkiomen Trail today, so we're going to keep going that way. It's at about this stage that I would typically say that the trail is mostly flat or mild upslopes or that type of thing. But one thing about the Perkiomen Trail, you've got some hills that we're going to see in a little bit. And again, as always, very busy portions of the trail. Always call out your intentions, whether you got the bell, the buzzer, or your loud voice. It's just nice cycling etiquette. And now we're leaving the lower Perkiomen Valley Park. So we're coming up to Indian Head Road at mile 2. There's a small parking area here, a couple of vehicles. And the trail continues along the side of Indian Head Road for a little bit. As I mentioned, it's not flat. You'll notice here this right angle turn and a couple of treadway barriers here, so just be careful going through them. Don't try to make that 90-degree turn at speed. And now here we're getting the crushed limestone, fine gravel surface for a while. Watch the falling rocks, stay on the trail. Always good advice, especially during these areas. Even if you've seen the other episodes on the Great Allegheny Passage, especially the more mountainy areas, you have these sheer cliffs along the side of the trail. So you always just want to be careful whenever you're riding, just to make sure that you're ready to huff it if you start hearing something coming off of the cliff. And we're coming up to an intersection here. This is our intersection with Cider Mill Road. Coming off of the hill there, they may not be able to see you and or may not want to stop. And we have a three-way intersection here, so always just have to be careful going across. And nice gentleman letting us pass, thank you very much. Always nice to see when nice people want to stop for a pedestrian or a cyclist in a crosswalk. Not everybody does that. We crossed Cedar Mill Road, now we're going to cross Arcola Road. And I guess they call these things bollards here in the Philadelphia area. I call them trail barriers. This is going to be a little bit harder because you can see it's kind of a blind hill because it's a curve there. So you just want to really be careful whenever you're here. Just kind of creep out a little bit and make your presence known. You're going to notice too that a lot of the Perkiomen Trail, whether it's southern, central, northern portions, pass by residential areas and nice, quaint residential areas too. A lot of it isn't the built-up urban type of things that we've seen in other places like Newmarket in Ontario, and you may have seen that Secrets of the Trails on Vacation video that I did there. You do have a little bit of a drop off here, so always just be careful that you're right on the trail and you're not going to fall down into the creek. It's always my fear, you know. It's one of these nightmares you have every once in a while. You're riding along a trail and all of a sudden a squirrel bumps out or something and then boom, tumble down into the wherever. This is a nice, beautiful, relaxing fall day. It was really chilly this morning, but early afternoon here, it's really warmed up. This is a nice opportunity to actually see some of the fall foliage, as well as just getting out there and just taking my time on my ride, as 21 Pilots says. Chemical plant up there, close to the Collegeville area around the Yerkes. With the width of this trail and the cut between sheer cliff and sheer cliff, you can definitely tell that this was a former railroad bed. And at this point, we have to use a little bit of a road surface, just kind of make a little S-bend to get to the other side of the trail from the road here. Again, mind the bollards. I don't know, I still want to call them trail barriers. A little bit of a bump there. And some loose gravel here. As I said, changing trail conditions, you saw that little bit of pavement and then back to the gravel. We're going to be crossing over Perkiomen Road. Just watch this little bump there. It'll come up and sneak up on you. And just after crossing Perkiomen Road, you see love interpretive signs. Here we go, the Camp Shalom of Collegeville, PA, rescuing 50 children from Nazi oppression during the Holocaust. We're mile 5 here. And another little bump back up onto the asphalt. And we've got another curve here. Just be careful of that curve. We're going to be crossing 2nd Avenue. We're coming into the area of Collegeville here. You got the CVS pharmacy on the left. Actually, you had to make that quick little turn. We're going to go across this CVS parking lot access way. And it's letting us know that the bikeway is narrowing ahead. There's something going on here in Collegeville today. So we're going to have to be really careful through Collegeville today because obviously something is going on. And you know me, I'm always one for obeying the rules that says cyclist dismount. So guess what? I'm going to dismount. The trail is actually going to go across Main Street and back over where that other cyclist is going. So I'll catch you in a second. And while I'm sitting here, this is Collegeville, folks. Go up that way. One of my favorite coffee houses is Valerio Coffee House. Actually not too far away from your Cincinnati College. And back on the other end of Main Street, more interpretive signage. You know I love interpretive signage. And a nice little parking area here. Bike rack and a bicycle repair station there. Somebody told me one time that as far as cyclists are concerned, Collegeville has it all. I don't live around here, but I'm taking their word for it, guys. It's North 29, or 1st Avenue, that we're riding parallel to. Another nice little cut. You know I love those things. My gosh, you feel so closed in. Hope you're not claustrophobic. And pretty soon we're going to be crossing over 1st Avenue here. But before we do that, we're going to be crossing East 9th. And a few homes over here, so just watch out for their driveways. And here's where we're going to cross over Pennsylvania 29. So warning lights are flashing now, so let's just see if anybody actually pays attention. Nope. Somebody did. Thank you very much. 7 miles here. And there's always somebody who wants to run a pedestrian crosswalk, even though Pennsylvania law states that vehicles must stop for pedestrians and cyclists in a crosswalk. Boy, you could tell it's fall. Look at this. A beautiful sunny day for the fall foliage next to the Perkiomen Creek. What more could you want? This is better than yoga. This is Bridge Road, or State Route 113. And if you saw the sign there, this is nice because they have 2 different ways of going under the bridge. And another little parking area here. This is called the Rahns Trailhead, R-A-H-N-S. You can see there's a little bit of a business area. See so many people with Eagles jerseys on today. Almost makes me want to wish that I had my Eagles Super Bowl champion sweatshirt on today instead of my official Secrets of the Trails jersey. But if you've seen my video on the highlights of the 2025 Philly bike ride, you would have noticed my Eagles hat that I wore instead of my typical hat that I usually wear. We got a Pico terminal here. Pico is the electric company in the Philadelphia area. It's right at mile 8. And as always, just be careful of the curves. Some curves are tighter than others. Now here is a very interesting thing. I rode this trail a couple of years ago and I really loved this little feature here. We're going to go across Perkiomen Creek over this bridge. So we're going to stop for a second so you can see some of the areas around Graterford and the Perkiomen Creek itself from this nice little bridge. But here's the interesting thing about that nice little bridge. It's a switchback. This is a large switchback. I could land a helicopter on this part of the switchback. And Skippack Village. Some of the other interpretive signs that you can see along the way, native birds. We saw one other earlier about the fish that you can catch around here. So Graterford's over there. When we were looking at that bird interpretive sign, there was a little bit of a trail that said to Skippack Village. You just take that little bit of a trail. We're at mile 9 here, and we're going to go up a little bit more of a hill. We're going to be crossing over Graterford Road. A few bumps on the asphalt, so always be careful of those. Getting a little bit more of the treadway barriers here, cutting through this flat, nice forest.
And we're coming up to another trail access area. This is across the creek from Graterford, PA. It's right in the middle of this forested area, so it makes it nice and peaceful. There are about 15 parking spaces, one marked for handicapped access. It's accessible from Hollywood Drive, which itself is accessible from Perkiomen Creek Road.
And a couple of 90-degree bends, so just be very careful. Fortunately, this is all paved because this is just really cool. Winding around through the trees, nice and peaceful, a beautiful fall day. Trail goes this way, folks. Another one of several bridges across Perkiomen Creek here. And as always, just watch these bumps. You don't want to hit that too hard and flatten your tire. Now we hit 10 miles here, just about halfway. So just past mile 10, we come to the Central Perkiomen Valley Park, another fairly large park and a major trailhead area. This is probably about 20 spaces, a couple of handicapped. There's multiple other spaces over here. You know what, guys? I'm just going to stop counting. And another fairly large park in Montgomery County, so you have multiple opportunities to park here. And the trail actually will continue that way. Although if you want to stage here, you can stage at any part of the Central Perkiomen Park. There's some other parking areas on the other side of Plank Road there. So a lot of opportunities here at Central Perkiomen. And the trail continues here at the crossover of Plank Road here, Otts Road there, and Gravel Pike coming across that way. We're going to head in that direction by that northern parking area for the park. And on the other side of Plank Road, and we got a little bit of an upslope here. I'm going slowly here because of the couple of 90-degree turns there. Followed immediately by a few people's houses. So we're basically just doing a big swing around everybody's houses there. A little bit wider here, but as you've seen, have that little bit of a drop off onto the creek to worry about. So we're coming into the town of Schwenksville now. Right around Schwenksville, you'll find the historic Pennypacker Mills. It's a beautifully preserved colonial revival mansion. The site offers tours and events. And there's Perkiomen bicycles there. So if you need a bike shop or need a little repairs and you're on the trail, they're right there, literally. So nice chat with a gentleman from the Montgomery County Planning Commission there, doing a survey about businesses and other opportunities that they can bring to Schwenksville. And again, you know I love interpretive signage. You have this nice little landing here with a couple of interpretive signs about Schwenksville. So nicely paved a little bit here as we go up and down some rolling hills. This is Mine Run. And another little 90-degree trail barriers here, so always be careful of those. And we're going over the creek again. See somebody down there fishing. So we got that interesting, probably about a 7% grade there for a short bit. But again, that's not the monster I was talking about. So about mile 12.5, you're going to experience the big hill. So much so that they actually have this sign there, guys. Wow. 12% grade in a quarter mile. Now, I'm gonna stop here for just a second. So I'm gonna stop right here because every single person I've ever talked to about the Perkiomen Trail, or the Perkies they like to call it, always talks about this monster hill. It's a verified 12% grade. So unless you're about 18 years old and have athlete's legs, you're not riding back up this thing. And if you do ride up this thing, please let me know in the comments. I have a class 2 e-bike and I'm probably walking back up this thing on the way back. But going down is fun. Just want to take it slowly still. All right, so let's go. Oh, just make sure you got good brakes. Yeah, look at this thing. It's not long, it's just extremely steep. And I don't know if the Montgomery County Planning Commission has any serious plans of altering the route of the Perkiomen Trail to get rid of this thing. However, yeah, going down it is pretty fun, but you still want to go down slowly. And so now we're at the bottom of the hill finally. And at mile 13. So right at this point, the trail is paralleling Spring Mountain Road. So this is another be careful section where you probably should dismount, because right here you've got limited sight distance. Here you got limited sight distance. Here everybody can see you, but coming across here and going up that one hill, again, unless you got really good legs, you're walking across. So here's some trailhead parking at Spring Mount. Share space with some of the businesses in the area. You got a nice little trailhead area, kiosk, benches, and a restaurant there on the other side of the parking area. And we're going across Perkiomen Creek again. Again, just watch these little bumps. I always go over them slowly. Again, get some nice views of Perkiomen Creek going to the north and to the south there. So right around the Spring Mountain Southward areas are where we're going to actually encounter a good number of crossings with small or tertiary roads, driveways, those kinds of things. Mile 14 we've just passed. It was up around this part of the trail. See these little bit of rock faces around here. People will actually stop and take a break there. I've seen some people in the past take some selfies by those rock faces, but I don't know if they have any names to them, but if somebody knows, yeah, let me know in the comments. I'm gonna stop here for a second because by everything that's on the map, to the right is the whole area around the Philadelphia Folk Festival. Another little stop at Southward Station Road, and we have another one coming up here. Another one here with Harmon Road. Looks like it's a small park just for the locals, but if you need to use it, it's there. And we're back to the crushed limestone. That's the first time I've seen a sign like that, quiet residential area. So I'm assuming we shouldn't have boom boxes on our bikes blasting AC/DC or something. And a couple of different road crossings here. Salford and Quarry. You can just imagine this is a rail bed and the rail line going through this little cut in the rock. Coming up to Hendricks Station Road here. And it was around this portion a couple of years ago, whenever I was checking this trail out for the first time, that I actually saw a horse and rider on the trail. They're probably just allowed on this upper portion. I couldn't imagine that they would be allowed on the southern or central portions that we saw earlier. That portion would just be way too busy for a horse. A little farm and some horses there. So is it any wonder that I saw somebody riding their horse on this trail? So right around here, I'm going to see a lot of marks in the gravel, so there's a lot of loose gravel up here, so just be aware of that whenever you come on this trail. A little bit of a rut there, so we don't want anybody going off into that thing. So fortunately the cone is there to warn you. We're going to be going over Montgomery Creek here that spills into the Perkiomen Creek just down there. There's another little kiosk and a parking area here. And this is the Crusher Road trail access. It's all gravel and unlined, but to access the northern portion here without going into Green Line Park, it's actually not a bad place to stop. And speaking of Crusher Road, so the trail really narrows up. It's probably a good 6 feet here. So right here at Upper Ridge Road, we actually have to use the road surface for a little bit, make a left here and head down that way until we get to Deep Creek Road. Fortunately, there's a wide berm here that we can use as the trail surface. It's a good crosswalk area that we can just kind of come across here, stop here, make a left, and continue on down the trail. And this is the Perkiomenville Bridge. Get some decent views. I'm actually going to go both sides here if I can. But this is a beautiful bridge that they built for the Perkiomen Trail. So now we have a little bit of an upslope here, so just be careful going up to Deep Creek Road. Again, according to the map, we have to use Deep Creek Road a little bit further until we get to the next cutoff, which will be off to the left. Always just look behind you because you are making the left here. And there's nobody coming behind me because I can see from my rear view mirror. And now we're coming into Green Lane Park. And here's the interesting thing about Green Lane Park. If you look at it on a map, this thing is huge. There are two large bodies of water that are reservoirs that are used to supply drinking water for the area here. And this part's paved, but because of all the curves and twists around, take it easy. You don't need to go too fast. Hi, little deer. That's the kind of shot that I want. If GoPro ever does the GoPro Awards again, there you go. Always look out for wildlife on the Perkiomen Trail, or pretty much any rural trail that you're on. This is an upslope. The trail is on this side of the road. You can see the larger surface area of the pavement. So from the yellow line here, the trail actually skirts along the edge of this huge parking area, easily 150 spots, if not more. In Green Lane Park, you have a lot of different types of hiking trails. I don't think they're going to be usable as bike trails at all. However, we still have the Perky, and we're going to cross over. So this is a steep stop. And we're getting into a little bit more coarse gravel. Going up and down hills, be very, very careful because it's very easy to slip. I'm going to hazard a guess and say that the last couple of miles of this trail are probably more used by walkers in Green Lane Park and not necessarily by bikers, and probably one of the reasons why is because of that really coarse gravel that you can just slide on and really hurt yourself. Actually having to share the road again here. Now we're gonna have to share the road there a little bit, but this portion is much finer gravel. But again, watch out for those areas that have a lot of buildup. Yeah, the wind's picking up. And we've hit 20 miles. So we hit mile 20 here on the Perkiomen Trail, right here in Green Lane Park. The trail goes on for a little bit longer up that way for about another half of a mile or so, and stops at a road junction. It's kind of an inauspicious ending for such a fantastic trail, but I'm going to stop here today because pretty much everything we've already seen is so just fantastic. And here in Green Lane Park, in the northern terminus of the Perkiomen Trail, there are so many other trails around here, especially walking, hiking, and maybe mountain biking trails if you're so inclined. I'm just too old to mess around with some of that really coarse gravel, and I'll leave it to the youngsters. I really hope you enjoyed this look at the Perkiomen Trail. This is a 20+ mile, beautiful, fantastic ride through a lot of scenery and history. Nice small towns along the Perkiomen Trail that you can stop, take a break, and enjoy the sights and sounds, as well as some real challenges if you're so inclined and if your legs will stand for it. But overall, this is a beautiful trail and one that you definitely have to have on your cycling bucket list. For now, that's all the time we have. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you next time for another episode of Secrets of the Trails. Have a great ride. Just real quick, on the way back, I got about 3/4 of the way, a little bit more than that, on the e-bike before I had to stop and walk just a little bit of the rest of the way. I'd still like to know if anybody's actually made it up there in one go without dismounting and walking. Please leave me a message in the comments below.